Ok, hola a todos y bienvenidos a las charlas educativas de Instituto Marangoni Miami. Durante estos 3 días vamos a hablar con personajes e invitados de la moda para aprender más sobre el negocio de moda. Hoy nuestro primer invitado es Rafael Azzi, el fundador de la empresa Azzi Co., una empresa de relaciones públicas y con sitio en Nueva York y Sao Paulo. Uh, es una empresa que representa marcas como Portebra, Lafs, Juan de Dios. Y con Rafael hoy vamos a hablar y descubrir cómo podemos entrar en el mercado estadounidense. US, sorry. All right, Rafael, how are you?
Hi, Massimo. How are you? Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone.
There we go.
Sorry,
So,
I, I'm not going to speak in Spanish because I have the portuñol.
yes, actually, I forgot to say that the education talks that we're doing with Marangoni, they will be all in English, as
Okay,
we have
great.
international players. So Rafael, thank you so much for today. And obviously, the American market is something very important for all of Latam brands. So it'll be great to have your opinion and feedback on how we need to go about to be able to break into the American market.
Sure. So I'll tell you a little bit about me. So just to give some context, I moved here to the United States to New York 13 years ago. I moved here to open a Brazilian fine jewelry store called Jack Vartanian. Nobody knew about the jewelry, this jewelry brand. It was unknown. So that's where I started sort of like working with international brands coming to the US. After that, I worked for Alexander Bierman, which is a famous Brazilian shoe designer. Then I went to Tory Burch to do international marketing. So I was taking the brand from the US and bringing to international countries, which was an interesting and different perspective. And then 5 years and a half ago, I opened Arts & Co., which, as you said, is a public relations company, together with business development. So when we say to get business development, meaning that we'd like to, grow their business and introduce the brand not only to the press, but also to buyers. Today we have two offices. We have an office in São Paulo and we have an office in New York. We work with approximately 30 clients in total. We mainly all of our clients are international brands coming to the US. So as you said, we represent Juan de Dios, we represent which is from Colombia, we represent Portebra, which is from Venezuela. We also have Silvia Cherassi from Colombia, Circuit from Brazil. We work with them. So each client has a different, need. It's very surgical. It's very, one-on-one with the clients but they all have a goal in common, right? To enter the U.S. market, and as everybody knows, it's the most competitive market in the world, right? Everybody wants a little bit of the U.S. market. I don't have the recipe, right? I don't know. But what we do is that we advise. I wish I had. We're trying. We're gonna get there one day.
You would make a fortune if you did, actually.
Oh yes, we're gonna get there. And I promise that I will share once I have it. But we work. Each client works in a different way. It's a different product. It's a different level of investment. I think one thing that I like to say to everyone, especially the smaller brands, not only the smaller brands, but I think, and something that coming from Brazil and South America, it's like we need to think that once we're going to a different market, and I think this applies to every single new market that you're entering, right? Just because you do success at your home country, and this can be Italy, can be anywhere, doesn't mean that it's going to work here, right? Because it's a different market, right? So sometimes we get new clients and they come like, oh, I wear this is my top seller in Brazil and everybody loves it. I say that's great, but here it's a totally different market. We have to start basically from scratch. So there's like the product, the pricing. It's very important. So it's not just come and do like cho. There's like a few actually a lot of different aspects and of a bigger strategy. So what I have here, and I think it's interesting to show, it's a new business proposal. So this brand that I'm gonna show, it's a fashion brand from Brazil. I just took out the name, just So
Okay.
it's not 100% out there. But this is the scope of work of what we would work with a new brand coming to the US. So this particular brand does not have a presence here in the US, but they do make some sales on their e-commerce.
Okay. Rafael, if I can just interrupt. Azzi & Co, it's not just focusing on fashion, but it also focuses, I know you also do hospitality, so you sort of, you
Yes.
have different sectors. So I think this information is also useful for, not only for people who work in retail or fashion, but in if you've got a company or brand that you want to come into the US market, correct?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And not only to the US market, we do the opposite too, because we're very strong in Brazil. We also, in Brazil, it's like, it's that different country in Latin America that's like, okay, you have Latin America and then you have Brazil, I think mostly because we don't speak Spanish. But yes, we tend to look, I never wanted to be focused only in one like single industry. I always like to be like cross industry, if you will, but always talking to the luxury market. But we do have hospitality, jewelry, fashion, and now we are venturing. Like we have also beauty, and now we're starting a little bit with some food that we put like it's healthy food, so it's kind of like wellness,
Cool.
hospitality, and beauty. So the three. And I think the clients they talk to each other, which I think is great. So you know,
Well, I
yeah,
think that while you get the presentation ready, I think another thing which is great is Juan de Dios was a Pitch to Love's finalist 2 years ago, and
yeah,
Portebras is one of the finalists now. So you
exactly.
bring good luck to the brands.
Yes, hopefully, and I think also it's always a 50-50, we're always working very closely together with our clients because I think part of my job is to take my client's product and show to the right person, right? Sometimes the people ask me like, okay, what can you guarantee as a PR or as like a showroom? The only guarantee that we can have is we have two guarantees. One, that we can, in our opinion, we give the right advice, right? What to do? What are the steps, right? Sometimes the step is, sometimes my advice is say, listen, let's start working in 1 year from now because your brand is not ready. This we say a lot, because I don't want anyone to waste money. The second one is like to bring once we have the product ready, the strategy in place, our what we do is to show to this I can guarantee. Now, if that person is going to buy or get a feature, I guess it's a whole different thing. It doesn't depend only on me, right?
Right.
So yes, Juan de Dios and Port de Bras and many other brands, we're very proud to represent them because they're just fantastic in what they do, and we understand that it's a long term. It doesn't think it happens overnight for the same reason it's saturated. So you have to have a very good product, the right price, the right strategy, the right PR, tools. So we see it as a pizza with different slices, right? So one is the product, the other one is the PR strategy, and then inside the PR strategy you have a lot of different aspects to it. So you have events, social media, gifting. So it's really like it's much more complex than it seems,
Sure.
but it's fascinating because whole new world that you're discovering in your product, like it's just I love that. I love what I do.
Great. Okay,
So
so I
let me
think
share.
we can share the presentation.
Yes. So can you see my screen?
Let me check with technicians. Yes, there we go.
Okay, great. So as I said, this is a PR. It's a very recent PR and business development proposal that we did. We actually got the client, so we signed the client. So it's a successful story, at least in the beginning, right? We pitch. Usually, what we do is that either the brand reaches out to us or we reach out to the brand. In this case, this brand reached out to us, we evaluated, we talked to the founder, and then we decided to send the proposal. So here is just a little bit, just the index, and then to tell you guys again a little bit of who we are. We were really want to. The reason why I opened my agency is because I've been on the client side for so long, and I always miss that sort of like, someone that's going to hold my hand and say, hey, this brand needs to do this, this, and this, or let's try this way. So we were born 5 years ago in the middle of shift of the markets, right? The marketing is changing dramatically and very fast. The press market, the media market is changing, the retail market is changing, like, so we were born in the middle of this and we're in the middle of New York. So it's like we're agile, we're very up to date, with everything that it's working at. And we do feel that public relations is the base of everything. And when we say public relations is the base, it's not public relations only with the press. It's really like we identify together with the client who will be the public, right? Okay, so this I wanna. So we identified the goal with our clients, right? So what is the goal for that specific client? They want to start taking their first steps toward the U.S. market, and again, biggest market in the world. So we need to like go slowly. We are competing with the nicest and biggest and richest brands in the world. So we need to, I think, humbleness, knowing where we are, having a good product. So all of this counts a lot, right? So here it's just an overview of the goal. And then here it's the scope of work. So in public relations, we need to create the relationships with influencers, with tastemakers, with editors on behalf of the brand. Always remembering that the market is already happening. There's so much happening, so much happening. And as I keep repeating, it's like we're competing with the best. So why not see this brand, when they have so many appointments? So same thing, like we evaluate, we feel the product, there's, of course, it needs to have a compelling storytelling. So we work very closely with the clients, right? So then here's just a couple of ideas of different titles that we work with. We also have an office here in New York in Soho, so we get visitors every day, like editors, buyers. They come here, and it's always just like people wanting to. The market is always open for new brands, but you don't have any chances. Once you're there, you have to do the right thing, right? So also we look for different collaborations. I believe a lot in collaborations, the power of collaborations. I think that if it makes sense, and we can see so many examples in the industry of collaborations, that I think it's always a win-win, right? And then, of course, the influencer community. We need to create a community around the brand, right? So then we do also events. We manage. We look for the locations. I think, especially now that events are coming back here in New York, especially, like it's almost 100% back. We've been doing a lot of events. It's good because products that we represent, they're special. Sometimes they're like crochet bags from, I don't know, from somewhere in Latin America. You want to tell story so much different than doing online. I would love to be actually there speaking to you guys and not via Zoom. So I think that changed. So we do love our events. We're very budget conscious. We want to make sure that the events are targeted. So we don't need to do an event for 100 people. Sometimes a breakfast for 5 key buyers and key editors it's much more
Personalized and sort of
efficient
customized.
yeah, exactly. Because there's so much happening all the time, so it's better just focus and say, listen, let's work with these 5 people, and then we just focus. Then just trying to
Just
touch
a quick,
everybody.
if I can interject a second. Yes, events are coming back, and as you know, we live from Costa Rica, so Costa Rica Fashion Week, and for me, it's the first time back actually in a Fashion Week in person, which is great. But obviously, this has made us all reconsider how we do events. So even like in your case, when a brand comes, you've got so many new factors that you have to take into consideration. So how have you
Yeah,
adapted
big time.
with that now?
Yeah, I think currently now, like August 5th, 2021 in New York, like we don't need to take at least like following the CDC, which is the I don't say how to say organ, like, but the state, the regulations. We don't need to do anything for now. We're just gonna host an event. But then, of course, as a common sense, you just like you're not gonna put 100 people, on a city dinner.
Of course.
We're being more conscious. Previously, I think to like May, we had to, we would ask everyone to get tested, but vaccination here in the US, as I'm sure, well, you live in Miami, so we started so early on. And then I think now with the Delta is changing a little bit. We just have to, of course, be a little bit more aware, but I always like to do smaller events even without the pandemic. So I think we're good on that. We also are doing a lot of appointments, right? So instead of having even like 5 people, we had just separate appointments here in the showroom, or we take a suite at a hotel, which is something that works very well for us too. But definitely like everything we've been doing on a smaller and more intimate scale, which I love it.
It's kind of like going a bit old school, isn't it? Like if you think of the old days of couture where you went to the showroom
Yeah,
and, it's kind of nice. This like retro,
absolutely.
nostalgic feeling.
Yeah,
Just another
exactly. We
question I
did
wanted
one.
to... Sorry.
Go
No, go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I was just going to say we did a presentation for Silvia Cerassi's latest collection at the Fasano Fifth Avenue Hotel here in New York, and she was there with Sophia, her daughter. They were showing the collection. We had the appointment, so it was not like everyone at the same time. It was fantastic. So it was exactly as you said. It was like the old school. People would come, and then they would have time talking to the designers, to the founders. It's kind of like we had moments for conversations, and I love it.
And another question I wanted to ask, you said brands approach you, but obviously you also go in search for brands. So I know that some of them are organic, maybe friends suggest brands to you, but like how would you go to discover new brands? Do you go on Instagram? Do you go to trade fairs?
Yeah, Instagram, 100% Instagram, and a lot of friends. I think also within the office, we're in 15 people in the office in New York and Brazil. We're always like exchanging, Instagram. So this brand, oh my God, maybe they're not represented yet. Let's see. That there's always that excitement, because we know what the market's sort of like looking for, and we also have our own personal taste. And sometimes when we identified ourselves with a specific brand, like wow, we'd love to talk to them, and I'm it's like it doesn't hurt if we're not going to represent them. We can maybe do an event together. We can I think it's always good to meet new people.
Sure.
So yeah, I think it's a
And
good way. And then people when they reach out, it's also
and
recommendation, or they saw our.
do you have this gut instinct where you can immediately tell if like, oh my God, this brand is gonna make it, not gonna make it in the market,
I think,
or are you a
yeah,
risk,
as we
or do you,
grow,
or are you a risk taker?
I'm definitely a risk taker, always been, but I think that we can somehow say and sort of like, okay, this is gonna work or this is not gonna work. Like and that's something not gonna work for us, right? Not for the American market. It's like not gonna work in my world here, because we need to identify ourselves with the client. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. It's very an approach that we have with the market, either with buyers or with the press. So, for example, if I'm at a trade show like in Cabana, and when I saw you, Massimo, in Miami, we had, we were representing Tria, which is this super super cool beachwear line from Brazil. We were there with the booth, and I need to represent, I need to sell this brand. So I can fake it. It's just like we need to believe. There's no time for like, oh
Sure.
no, we need to really really feel passionate about the brand. So this
Great.
is this is how we roll. Yeah.
That's how you roll.
Uh,
I think,
so
was there
this,
more to the
yeah.
presentation? Sorry, because I interrupted you, so I don't know if you had more pages to show.
I think we do, yeah. So and then the events, and then we have the wholesale, which it comes to the part of the business development. I personally like it very much because I always say that if you open the right doors for your clients, that if you're selling or consigning, depends on the deal, to specific doors is as good, if not better, to position your brand. Then you're like, of course, you want to be on Vogue and you want to be on selling on Goop, right? Or like a Moda on Net-a-Porter. You want both. But And I feel that both strategies should walk together. You have to have a strong PR presence, but you're only going to have a strong PR presence if you're selling somewhere internationally, especially in the US. And then you're going to sell somewhere in the US if you have a strong PR presence. So it's like chicken and egg. So I feel that, the buyers, they love when we get a placement, let's say on New York Times of a client, and then the credit it goes to that specific store. So, we work with Erin Lauder. She has a couple of shops around the country. And then there's a client that is featured on Town and Country. And then we always say, oh, this client can be, you can find this pair of earrings on Erin Lauder. It's like a win-win. It's like helping the retailer that supports your brand to sell more. So and that creates a whole trust relationship. That's why we started with the wholesale business. And of course, I want to place my clients on the best doors possible.
Of course, and I guess it's taking baby steps, no? Like if your ultimate goal is, like you say, Goop, maybe before you get there's various different retailers or marketplaces you have to go through before you get there. It's a marathon, not a sprint, is what I always tell our students as well. You have to sort of follow the guidelines and the procedures that are in place.
Yes. Nothing is going to happen overnight, but it has to start somewhere, right? So I think it's starting with at least a plan. I'm much more a doer than a planner myself, but we do, thank God, we have planners here in the office to sort of balance it out. Otherwise, I would just start doing everything. So I get a little anxious sometimes, but especially here in the US market where you have to plan, especially, the wholesale calendar. You hear a lot of people saying, oh, the wholesale calendar is so hard, I don't want to do wholesale. You see a lot of a lot of brands saying that they want to do direct to consumer. Great, good for them, as long as they have strength and budget enough to make sure that people are going to see, people are going to go to their websites, right? Because that's a whole different competition, right? So I think wholesale is a very, very important pillar of the business. It does help, if you're on a Saks Fifth Avenue, if you're in New Marcos, Bergdorf, it just gives a whole level of visibility for your brand. So I do think that it's a very important, it can even be considered like as a marketing strategy, I find so many new brands, or when I go on Moda or when I go to Net-a-Porter or Group, I'm there like, wow, I never heard about this brand. And I never would have heard about this brand if I wasn't on, So, but of course, to be there is hard. So, going back here. So this is, we also work, I feel like trunk shows for some brands. It's interesting. We also organize events with final clients. So we do have this strong sales part, and I love it. Then here is the fees and time. I just didn't, I decided to hide here just because it really depends on the scope of work, But I want to, like a PR agency here in New York, you have all the prices, but it's not cheap. Everything that you want to do in New York, it's expensive. So I want to say that like from 4 to, I don't know, sometimes $8,000 and sometimes if you're a smaller brand, a lot of the agencies are open to discuss, post pandemic. It depends also on the product. Sometimes it's this fantastic product that nobody has ever seen. So the brand, the PR, they would almost do pro bono, and then we get a percentage on the sales. And then we charge for a couple of things. Again, New York is very expensive. Everything. I try to sign my client for at least a 6 months project. Ideally, it's 1 year, because on the first 3 months, nothing is going to change. We're not going to see any results. And then you sort of like, the first 6 months, you're going to start seeing the traction, because by then, also, the US market, the buyers, they want to see consistency, right? So they want to see, okay, so you show me on the first 3 months, you show me the collection. What's next, right? Who's going to buy? Where is it going to be featured? Who is wearing it? You need to show that you're here to stay, right? Again, competition is very, very strong. So you need to show the market that you're here to stay, that you're not just like, people's time is very limited, so you can't just waste people's time. So
Absolutely.
uh,
A question. So if you have to summarize sort of maybe like 5 key steps or 5 fundamental points that someone needs to break into the market, what would you recommend those 5 points be? Can
I
you
would
summarize them to
recommend.
5?
Yeah, yeah, I can. I think first one would be to plan, right? Plan, and I mean plan financially, plan mentally, mentally, emotionally, and knowing that you're getting to like a whole new adventure. And you asked me if I'm a risk taker, so I do think that this is like a big
Just
risk.
can I actually a question, and I don't know if it's a stupid question actually, but America is this huge market. It's a huge mass of land. So we've got sort of the East Coast, the West Coast, and the middle. So I guess would they need to identify? I mean, can you just cater for the whole US market, or would you sort
No,
of
no, no,
want
no,
them
no, absolutely
to
not.
break down into certain categories?
You break down certain categories, and then it's very segmented here actually. Well, there's categories of course, like you have the, let's say, for buyers, and it's just like the editors. Can I stop sharing my screen so
Yep.
then guys can see me? Okay, can you see me?
We can see you. We've actually always been
Okay, great.
seeing you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Thank God I didn't pick my nose. So I think planning, it's definitely part of the strategy. So as I said, financially, mentally, emotionally, because it's a whole new world. I think being consistent. I think the consistency it's key. And yeah, I think 5 is too much. I think planning, consistency, humbleness, like knowing that you're entering a market that is a very, very established market. So I think it's very important to be open to learn, right? So be open to talk to professionals, and talk to people like me, like you, like Samantha, Stefania, who are like masters in what they do. So I think seek help, seek professional help first, then just like start like spending money, talk and see if it's the right moment. So I think those are
Do you
my
do you offer maybe mentoring if somebody who's watching us maybe wants to reach out to you to ask you some
yes, I
questions
love
or
doing that.
advice? Okay, great. So we'll
Yes,
share.
I love
We'll.
doing that.
No, I was going to say that we'll
Yeah,
share your contact details afterwards as well, so people can
please do,
reach
please
out.
do. And to answer to your previous question, Massimo, about the US, it's such a huge market. So here, the US, it's really divided by East and West Coast, right? Especially on
Yes.
the fashion in our industry. So the West Coast, it's a much more laid back market. So it's although you have like all the celebrity, the PR wise, you have in LA like the red carpets, the big jewelries, but that's only 3 months of the year because it's the award seasons. And then you have here the East Coast. It's also divided because you have New York and then you have Miami, which are absolutely different markets, right? So when, for
Big
example,
time.
for Cabana, which is the trade show for that we wore, it's a part of the swim. They were very few from because it's always sunny down there. It makes total sense. So like most of the sales that we did, it's and so it's very divided, and there are showrooms that only caters to the West Coast. So sometimes you get showrooms that said, okay, I have the West Coast and you have the East Coast. So you divide the lines because it's a different demographic.
That is what I find so interesting about the US market. Like as you know, we at our school we always have industry people to come to speak, and it's always interesting to hear how their products change so much, the categories, what people buy, and everything from each state. So it's
Yeah.
it's not that easy. I would say it's possible, but it's not as simple as people think it is to break into the market, because as you mentioned, all these segments is something that you have to take into consideration.
Yeah, and then a lot of people, they choose to start from New York, because New York, it kind of, there is this hype, and New York being New York, right, the capital of fashion of the world, in my opinion, and everything. See, and then from here you start like catering to different, but the weather I think plays a big role. You can
Absolutely.
winter in Miami.
Rafael, before we end, I just want to ask you one thing. As you know, we here in Costa Rica Fashion Week, because we've got our first students of Marangoni Miami who are actually showing their collections here. What advice would you give these future Marangoni Miami designers? Any useful tips that they need to take into consideration to be successful?
I think the market is open for new ideas and new brands. I highly advise, and that's something I did myself, to work with someone else before starting your own line. If you want to like start your own line, if you want to be design or something, I highly advise to you to get experience before, because although the market is open for new ideas, and I keep repeating this, it's a very, very saturated market for every single industry, right? It's not only fashion, or like so learn. I opened my agency after being like 12 years in the market, and I learned, and I made so many mistakes, and I said, okay, now I'm ready. I'm still doing mistakes, and I'm going to do a lot. So I hope, I think that's it. Learn from the others, with others. Be humble, be open, be curious. And then do it.
I think humbleness is the most important one. Rafael, on behalf of Costa Rica Fashion Week and Instituto Marangoni Miami, thank you so much again for taking part today. And please watch the fashion shows, because we would love to get your feedback from all the designers,
100%.
but also obviously from our Marangoni students. I'd love to know what you think of all the collections. And see you soon in Miami, hopefully. So thanks again.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.